Good. All right, well, good evening and welcome. Welcome to the 2013 ISI Henry and Ann Paolucci Book Award presentation. My name is Mark Henry, and I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Academic Officer at the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, ISI. For those of you who may be new to us, ISI is a national educational organization founded in 1953 in Philadelphia and headquartered since 1996 on Centerville Road in Greenville, overlooking the Hoops Reservoir. ISI's mission is to educate for liberty, inspiring college students to discover, embrace, and advance the principles and virtues that make America free and prosperous. With thousands of student and faculty members on virtually every college campus in the country, ISI each year produces a class of young and energetic leaders who, thanks to ISI's programs and publications, embark on their careers with a particularly deep understanding of and commitment to the American ideal of ordered liberty. ISI annually conducts over 200 educational programs around the country, including lectures, debates, student conferences, colloquia, seminars, and summer schools. ISI also offers graduate fellowships for aspiring college teachers. Through our collegiate network, we support dozens of independent student newspapers. We also publish the quarterly journal Modern Age, and under our imprint ISI Books, we have brought to both the academic and the general reader some of the most thoughtful and penetrating conservative insights of recent decades. The ISI Henry and Ann Paolucci Book Award is named for two remarkable individuals who, together, constituted an extraordinary couple. Henry Paolucci was a university professor and prolific writer who possessed a broad mastery of the history of political thought, as well as a keen sense of the influence of the past upon present political and economic realities. A polymath scholar, Paolucci's interests ranged from mathematics and astronomy to literary theory and political philosophy, from Greek and Roman antiquities to American history and Christian doctrine. An author of a staggering number of books, he taught English literature at Iona College, Roman history at City College and Brooklyn College, government and politics at St. John's University, and Dante and medieval culture at Columbia University. He was also a key figure in and a candidate for the Conservative Party of New York. He passed away in 1999. Henry's wife and intellectual partner of more than 50 years was Ann Paolucci, and her career was no less illustrious. She was an internationally acclaimed scholar in multi-comparative literary studies, as well as an award-winning playwright, poet, and fiction writer. Her most enduring critical contributions were seminal works on the playwrights Edward Albee and Luigi Pirandello. In addition to leading the Council on National Literatures for 30 years, she also served on the National Council for the Humanities and as a trustee and chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. She passed away in 2012. It was Ann who came to ISI in the early 2000s because she recognized ISI as a conservative institution with an enduring commitment to culture and to the life of the mind. She also recognized that ISI is a faithful steward of all its undertakings. Her final benefaction both endows this book award in perpetuity and will allow ISI to expand its programming in the area of national literatures. The ISI Henry and Ann Paolucci Book Award of $5,000 is presented by ISI each year to a deserving scholar whose intellectual achievement in the form of a book published in the previous year embodies the spirit, range, and scholarly rigor of the award's namesakes. And so, our main event. Brad Gregory is professor of history and Dorothy G. Griffin Collegiate Chair at the University of Notre Dame, where he was also recently named director of the Notre Dame Institute for Advanced Study. He has had a meteoric academic career. From 1996 to 2003, he taught at Stanford University, where he received early tenure in 2001. Before teaching at Stanford, he earned his PhD in history at Princeton University and was a junior fellow in the Harvard Society of Fellows. He also holds 2 degrees in philosophy, both earned at the Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium. He He has delivered invited lectures at many of the most prestigious universities in the United States, as well as in England, Scotland, Ireland, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy, Israel, and Taiwan. He is also a standout teacher, having received 2 teaching awards at Stanford and 3 at Notre Dame. The Unintended Reformation is Brad's most recent book, and it is a tour de force of historical interpretation and synthesis. It is also a very controversial book, a book making very strong claims, however ironically. It is a very big book, though there are those who believe that it ought to have been still longer in order to carry its argument. The book is, in a certain sense, history turned upside down. That is to say, most of us carry around in our heads something of a historical cartoon, inherited perhaps from Edward Gibbon, among others, in which the Middle Ages are seen as a time of darkness and stagnation. A turning point occurs in the 16th century, perhaps indeed in the Reformation, after which there is a bolting leap of human progress, first in northwestern Europe, but at length everywhere across the globe. Indeed, the historical forces unleashed in that modern turn are such that progress becomes nigh well inevitable. History mounts ever higher, and there are no genuine losses associated with the modern gains. Brad's book contests this cartoon basically on 2 counts. On the one hand, he observes that there are indeed losses as well as gains in modern progress, and at some level everyone, perhaps especially conservatives, knows this. On the other hand, and this is what is intellectually exciting about the book, he demonstrates that there is very little inevitable about the contours of our contemporary world. In fact, the road by which the past became the present is filled with contingencies, with things that did not have to turn out quite the way they did. Alternatives are indeed imaginable. That is not to say that Brad Gregory is nostalgic for the glory that was medieval Christendom. In fact, his concluding chapter is entitled Against Nostalgia. There he observes that, quote, judged on their own terms and with respect to the objectives of their own leading protagonists, medieval Christendom failed. The Reformation failed. Confessionalized Europe failed. And Western modernity is failing, but each in different ways and with different consequences. Did I mention that the book was controversial? Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Gregory.
Thanks very much, Mark, for the gracious introduction. Thanks to all of you for being here, for coming this evening. You can tell from that last quoted line that Mark offered that the book is a real upbeat, encouraging diagnosis of the situation in which we find ourselves. It's an extraordinary honor and a privilege to receive this year's Henry and Anne Paolucci Book Award, to be added to a list of award recipients that in the last 5 years alone includes Pauline Maier, Philip Hamburger, and Charles Taylor is humbling, to say the least. I'm grateful to the Intercollegiate Studies Institute for selecting my book from among many others that I'm sure were also worthy, and I'd like to express my particular gratitude in public to Mark Henry for his standout hospitality. I will speak for probably about 30 minutes or so and would be happy afterward to answer any questions that anyone might have. Needless to say, a brief presentation like this one cannot hope to convey the fullness of a book that's nearly 600 pages long, but I do hope it will give some of you who have not yet had a chance to read the book, some sense of its principal aims and arguments. And I should just say that the actual size of the book is somewhat smaller than the representation that you see, so you need not worry about being able to carry it home with you should you decide to buy a copy. The Unintended Reformation is a work of historical analysis that takes the present as its point of departure. It does not aspire to be comprehensive, but the book does aim, in the first instance, to be as explanatorily powerful as possible while making as few theoretical and methodological assumptions as necessary. Assume as little as possible, try to explain as much as possible. Secondarily,